And there was the B-29 Super Fortress. Under Colonel Paul Tibbets, Jr., head of the B-29 test program, this big bomber was given a thorough working over at Eglin. During the winter of 1944-45, B-29s had begun to fly precision bombing attacks from the Marianas against Japanese aircraft production facilities scattered in small wooden structures throughout their cities. But something was wrong with our bombing techniques. Eglin, having participated in the development of incendiary bombs and the B-29, combined this experience, demonstrating that incendiaries were the most effective weapon against standing wooden structures. The result? Devastating fire raids on Japan that began on the night of March 9, 1945. That summer, Eglin and the B-29s began a final chapter that would end the Pacific War. Colonel Paul Tibbets, released from command of the B-29 test program, assumed command of the Atomic Bomb Group, training for their mission to Japan. Like Doolittle 3 years before, Tibbets and his group practiced for a special job. Test flights were logged with the same profiles, airspeed, heading, rate of climb, and other factors as the planned mission to Japan. On August 6th at 8:15 a.m., the first atomic bomb was released from 31,600 feet over Hiroshima. It detonated 47 seconds later. Nagasaki on August 9th. 5 days later, Japan surrendered. After the war, a strange interlude of hope. America disarmed. The UN was born. The rebuilding of Germany and Japan got underway. With the establishment of an independent U.S. Air Force in September 1947, a new generation of aircraft began to fill the parking ramps at Eglin. The first operational jet fighters, F-84, F-86, the B-36 long-range strategic bomber, testing continued on other fronts as well. Significant developments grew out of continued work with the JB-2, the early missile adapted from the German V-1. In 1946, the first guided missile group was activated at Eglin, marking a shift from conventional weapons to new technologies. The group was established to develop tactics, test equipment, and train personnel for guided missile operations. Development work with drones continued. The idea was to avoid exposing air crews to radiation hazards during nuclear weapons tests. On January 13, 1947, Eglin made news with a drone flight to Washington, D.C. About that same time, the climatic laboratory was completed for cold weather testing of aircraft and equipment in Arctic temperatures. During the post-war years, testing continued, though at a reduced pace. The ranges, the labs, and other facilities, and of course the people, were still there. They faced a busy future. (1950), a watershed year for Eglin. Increased world tension gave way to more emphasis on conventional weaponry. The firepower demonstration that year marked the beginning of a new era. On hand at Eglin were the President, cabinet officers, the Joint Chiefs, and air chiefs of NATO, the newly formed Western response to continued Soviet threats. June 1950. North Korea invades the South. U.S. troops and Air Force units were quickly dispatched as part of a UN force to stop the North Korean aggression. On June 30th, President Truman authorized airstrikes against the North. The battle was on between the first generation of American and Soviet jets. Eglin shifted now to operational suitability testing in actual combat, improvising air-to-air tactics and better techniques for close air support, tactics that countered enemy aggression in Korea.
All right, there he goes. He's going down. You got him? All right, boy, that's a good deal. Watch it. We got two of them coming in here on us at 7 o'clock. Hang on. I haven't got him. Go ahead, take it, and I'll cover you. All right, I'm going in now.
Along with its primary mission of conventional weapons testing, Eglin became involved in the nuclear age. In Iwataq, November 1st, 1953, the first hydrogen bomb test. There and at Kwajalein, Eglin drones probed the clouds to sample fallout, gather weather and other scientific information. The beginning of a new age in weaponry and in flight. It was an age that would see enormous changes in technology. 1957, the Soviets launched Sputnik, the first man-made satellite. In that same year, the highly instrumented Eglin Gulf Test Range was established. Bomark, a pilotless interceptor missile, would be the first of many new weapons to be fired over this range. After Bomark, Falcon. Matador. Mace. Hound Dog. Bullpup. A new generation of jet aircraft arrived for armament test, evaluation, and development. The B-52 strategic bomber. The Century Series fighters, F-100, F-101, F-102, F-104, F-105. To meet ever-increasing technical challenges, a new major air command, the Air Research and Development Command, now the Air Force Systems Command, established an armament center at Eglin that became the Air Force Armament Laboratory. 1962, a new president, a major shift in national policy. Nuclear deterrence, but an emphasis as well on flexibility, on a growing capability for limited conventional warfare. A slow buildup from the early 1960s led to full-scale combat in Vietnam. A new type of warfare, limited to sophisticated conventional weapons. Eglin's role expanded with the war. Changes in aircraft and their tactical application accelerated the demand for armaments. By 1968, the Air Proving Ground Center had been redesignated the Armament Development and Test Center. Eglin was now responsible for both the development and acquisition of non-nuclear Air Force munitions and for missile testing. In 1968, the center delivered the first laser-guided bomb for use in Vietnam. The GBU-10 was developed to replace free-falling bombs. Eglin also began to play an important role in electronic warfare testing, working to develop effective radar jamming and electronic countermeasures. From such innovation, and from the war itself, emerged new national defense policies and new technologies. Eglin continued its role as host for other organizations. In 1965, F-4Cs of the 33rd Tactical Fighter Wing replaced SAC's Strategic Bomb Wing. Now flying the F-15 Eagle, the 33rd TAC Fighter Wing is a combat-ready force prepared for any contingency. The Tactical Air Warfare Center has been TAC's mainstay in testing conventional weapons and electronic warfare systems. In Eglin's remote back areas lies a U.S. Army Ranger camp. In 1970, a location such as this was used as a training site for a daring attempt to rescue American POWs from Son Tay, North Vietnam. In 1975, Eglin housed and processed 10,000 homeless Vietnamese refugees. Five years later, another 10,000 refugees were welcomed here, this time Cubans who fled to the U.S. in April and May 1980. Throughout the years since Vietnam, Eglin's primary mission continued: the development, test, and evaluation of Air Force armament and weapon systems. Currently in development, a whole array of precision-guided munitions and other new weapons. A range of programs with numerous supporting activities. The excitement, the urgency of making things happen. The progress from one new development to another. That hasn't changed. Only the hardware is different. Ever since World War II, Eglin Air Force Base has been in the same business: developing, testing, evaluating, making sure that if we have to defend freedom, we are up to the task at hand.
2. Good job.